guys, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a little while since I made a video, but had a lot going on in my life, so and I'm back now. This is my Engwe EP-2 Pro, an electric bike which has plenty of power and it's very versatile. I use it for everyday practical use, also use it for going out on fun rides. So I thought I'd put a few pointers to bed that people seem to have got wrong about this bike. It has a 7-speed Shimano gears, which past sort of 16 miles an hour, you can't really pedal assist. It's impossible. So once you get past there, you might as well forget it, the motor takes over really. I do try to use pedal assist, but yeah, once you get past 16 miles an hour, forget it, you're no way keeping up. I'm going to show you around the bike. As you saw at the beginning of the film, I've made some modifications of my own to get it to the way I like it. I've had it for 7 months. This is the 7th month, and I've done over 1,200 miles on it. It's been ultra reliable. I've had a few little hiccups with it, but nothing major. And I'm going to go over a list of things that you really do need to do when you first get this bike. They're really important for you to have good all-round running without problems. And also put a few things to bed that people don't realise what this bike can do. So yeah, I hope the video helps. And this is a series of videos. Been taking you out for rides with me, showing you what it's capable of, and hopefully you'll enjoy the ride. Okay, so without further ado, we'll get on with the video. The things I'm about to tell you are things I would recommend that you do. I do not take any responsibility for anything you do on your bike. You do it at your own risk. Okay, coming up are suggestions. So I would suggest you do when you get your new bike. It's entirely up to you whether you carry out what I say, but I would advise it. Read the manual from cover to cover. Read it twice if need be, or as many times as it takes for it to sink in. There's a lot to think about. Number 2, when assembling the bike, make sure you follow the instructions completely and that you tighten up all nuts and bolts, but don't over tighten them. Number 3, this bike is not very water resistant. It does actually say that in the manual, and when I got this particular bike, it was in the middle of winter, and for the first 4 or 5 months, all it did was rain when I went out on it. And as I'm using it as my everyday bike, I had to make sure it was waterproof. And I learnt a few lessons along the way, I've got to tell you. One of the first things to do is where the cables entry go into the bottom of the frame to the controller, I would suggest that you get an old piece of rubber inner tube, cut a hole in it so that it fits round the cables as close as you can get it, and glue it there. Once you've done that, to make sure it properly seals, I would suggest you use mastic, not a hot glue gun. Mastic, because you might need to get it off to change the controller or to sort out a fault. Also, I would suggest you put mastic around the pedal assist cable where it enters in to the actual crank assembly on the pedals. I had the unfortunate thing where, even though I tried to keep the bike, dried it off when I've been out on a ride, and but water does digress and it does get in there if you're not careful. And I got my bike out one morning to go and do a job, and put it out the front, switched it on, popped it into pedal assist 1, then suddenly remembered I hadn't shut the back gate. I got off the bike to shut the back gate, fully shut the back gate. As I turned round to get back on the bike, or to walk, there's a couple of feet to get back on the bike shot forward and tried to run me down. It's only the fact that I hit the brake levers that I managed to stop it. But even then, as soon as the brake levers were back off again it tried to run me down. So I kept my hand on the brake, got round on the bike, got on the bike, turned the key off to shut it down, and that stopped it. So water definitely got in to the pedal assist assembly. So I would suggest you put some mastic around there and make sure it goes in around the cable. I haven't had the problem since, and I've been in some really bad downpours, so it was definitely that caused it. Fortunately I was only in pedal assist 1 at the time, but I'm pretty certain if I had been in pedal assist 3 or 4 or even 5, it could have done me some serious injury. So please take note of that. Please go round any wiring you think is dodgy, where water can get in, put a little bit of mastic in there so it can't get in. Also, where the cable goes into the motor, it goes into a boot. The cable runs into like a little boot. Pack that out with a bit of mastic as well. That'll stop water digress getting up inside there and damaging the motor. I haven't had any electrical problems at all since then, so please take heed of what I'm saying. Number 4, squeaking brakes. This bike of mine, its brakes have squeaked since the day I had it, and even now they still occasionally squeak. I've tried cleaning it with brake cleaner. It just does it all the time. I don't know if anybody's got an idea out there of how to stop them squeaking. I've tried cleaning them. I've cleaned the discs. I've made sure there's no oil or anything on the brake discs themselves. I've cleaned the pads with brake cleaner, and they still squeak occasionally. Not all the time, but normally when you're coming right to a final stop, you'll get like a sort of creaking sound, and yeah, can't seem to stop it. So that's something you might put up with, I'm afraid. Apparently you can get softer pads which won't squeak, but you will have to change them more often. So yeah, so if your brakes are squeaking, it's normal. They all seem to suffer with it. Not sure about hydraulic brakes, but these cable type ones, they do squeak. So there you go, just thought I'd put that in there. Number 5, tyre pressures. Now I suggest, it says the maximum on these tyres is 20 psi. Now 20 psi does tend to make them extremely bouncy, and also if you want a softer ride, I'll suggest you drop them down to say 15 psi. I wouldn't go any lower than that, because the sidewalls are not very thick on these particular cheap tyres, and you can end up doing an inner tube pinch, so you'll end up with a puncture. So I recommend that. Number 6, lubrication. It's really important you keep this bike lubricated if you want it to work properly. I would suggest you put a light oil on the actual brake levers, where the hinges are, where they brake. Put a light oil on there. Put a little bit of grease on the cable. It will stop a lot of trouble in the long run. Also, down by the brake calipers, obviously don't get it on the brake pads, but where the lever pulls backwards and forwards, make sure that is lubricated, because that can jam up if you're not careful. Do that on both brakes, front and back. Okay, but obviously, as I say, be careful, don't get any oil on the actual pads themselves. The other places to check lubrication is on the steering stock. I found on my steering that after a while it started to get stiff and lock up, and so I had to disassemble it slightly, and I found that the bearings had hardly been greased at all. So it'd be worth checking that before you actually start using the bike, because they're not very good on lubrication. So yeah, well worth checking that out. Number 7, lubrication on the chain and on the gears and on the freewheel. Really important you make sure they're lubricated. Again, the freewheel is not something to lubricate very well at the factory, and you can end up with getting problems with that. So make sure you lubricate it well. Again, don't get any oil on the tyres, so be very careful. I suggest you get some rag and protect the tyres when you're putting oil on those places. If you do that, you will not have any more problems. Number 8, battery care. It's important when you charge your battery, try not to charge it to a full 100%. It's better to charge it to 80%. But about once a month or so, it does do good to charge it to 100%, because the BMS inside will balance the cells back out again. The other thing is, don't charge the bike inside the house. Don't charge the battery itself out of the bike in the house. There is a risk of fire, and you don't want that. So I suggest you do it in a garage, or if you've got a small workshop, do it in there. You can do it and charge it on the bike, or you can charge it off the bike. But definitely do not charge your battery in the house itself. That is very important. Number 9, make sure that the locking mechanisms to stop the bike from folding are properly, fully adjusted. That's important. You don't want the bike coming undone on you while you're in the middle of riding it. So it's important. Also, make sure they're lubricated so that they don't start to get stiff and lock up. This is easy done with just a light oil. Don't have to go mad. But yeah, very important. Make sure you do the adjusting nut, and that you have to apply a little pressure to get the lock to engage. This is just a recommendation. You don't have to do it, it's entirely up to you. I would suggest you make sure you get a camera for your bike, because car drivers out there really don't care. Well, a lot of car drivers just don't care, and you're just a push bike, and you will have nothing to cover your arse if somebody knocks you off your bike. Video cameras are so cheap to buy now, there's just no excuse not to have one fitted to your bike. Also an alarm and a decent lock, because on my other bike, on my Whirlwind, a little bike, somebody tried to steal that. Fortunately it was locked, but if it hadn't have been, they would have got away with it. So believe me, it's worth spending the money. I know it's extra money, nobody wants to spend extra money, but it's worth it. Also, you can get bike insurance for electric bikes for a very cheap amount of money. It's worth it, gives you peace of mind, you get liability insurance, and also if your bike gets stolen, you'll get the replacement value. So it's worth getting your bike insured. That's about all I can tell you now, so it's up to you if you take heed of what I've said. I hope you will, and so let's get on to the fun bit. Let's go for a ride on it.